The previous verse was the action of the air is exhibited in movements, mixing, allowing approach to the objects of sound and other sense perceptions, and providing for proper functioning of all other senses. Basically, the 5 elements have 5 different types of actions, which finally accomplish the functioning of this body, which again is composed of the Panchabhuta, or these 5 elements. So the 5 elements, the body is made up of 5 elements. And these very same 5 elements have different ways of interacting with different sensations. Sensation of touch, sensation of smell, taste, etc. Sensations. Here this particular sensation is called sparsha tanmatra, the subtle element of touch. When it interacts with the air, one receives different forms according to destiny. By evolution of such forms, there is fire, and the eye sees different forms in color. So how we get different forms of the body, and what will be the color of this body that we get, is all determined by, color is determined by the fire element, and the form of the body is determined by the interaction of the air and the sensation of touch, which we have created in this body, subtle body. These are all subtle elements. And predestined activities are the plans of the mental situation and the interaction of the air. So this mental situation is a perception, sense perceptions. Different types of sense perceptions are in the mind, and the interaction of the air. They create, but they act based on the laws of nature, which is laws of karma. As a predestined activities are the plans of the mental situation and interaction of the air. So destiny acts upon the sensation of touch, sparsha, tanmatra, then interaction of the air and the situation of the mind, and the laws of nature acts upon this configuration at the time of death, and that's how we get different bodies. Not only at the time of death, even at the beginning of creation, each living entity has also got their different bodies when Brahma created also, based on the same principle. There also destiny is there. In the previous pralaya of Brahma, when all the living entities have gone into the body of Mahavishnu, in a very subtle form, all these things don't get wiped out. Our destiny is also there. So living entities again come forth, and that based on that destiny and all those things, our ego also doesn't go. So based on all these egos, subtle, they all manifest, that's all. This creation manifests. Even according to modern physics, if you see, it is the temperature or the thermodynamic state of any substance which determines something is solid or liquid or fiery. These are based upon the vibrations, thermodynamics. So, the solid fire itself is a condensation of air. Air itself is a condensation of ether. Ether is very subtle. When it condenses, it becomes air. Further, when it condenses, it becomes fire, water, earth. And the earth has got, earth is associated with the 5 sensations, all 5 sensations. Water is amenable to 4 sensations. Air is amenable to 3 sensations. Fire is amenable to fire is 3 sensations. Air is 2 sensations. Sound is 1 sensation, hearing. So this entire understanding of the Sankhya philosophy of understanding the Sankhya system of understanding this functioning of this material world is egocentric understanding. Ego is the starting point, either false ego in the mode of goodness or passion or ignorance. Whereas the modern science, their understanding of the world is an understanding minus the ego. No scientific books talks about ego. But it's a reality. Ego is interacting everywhere. So first the science limits itself by saying that we are only interested in what I can sense, touch, smell, taste, etc. I have to finally verify everything by this. Whatever I don't see, whatever I don't feel, I don't taste, etc., they are in my mind. I will intellectualize. I have knowledge. I have something called scientific knowledge. But that knowledge is about the outside world. So the knowledge itself is not a reality for them. Knowledge itself is a phenomena. It comes into me, so I see something, I gain knowledge, I lose knowledge, I have knowledge, I don't have knowledge, it comes and goes. That means they are saying it is you create that knowledge. If you have some knowledge, you have created that knowledge. Which is partly right, but actually you get knowledge from somewhere. You don't create. You cannot create knowledge. The material world, everything we are just sharing. Knowledge in the mode of goodness, it's all there, it's all existing, and we share the living entity. Associates and shares all these things. So, but they say all this, that I will study the material world, I will study the interactions of the material outside world, but I do not know. I am not interested in studying it. So that is the reason why sometimes, the first time when I was reading this Bhagavatam before coming into, just when I came into Krishna consciousness, and I reading this about Panchabhuta and all these things, and I was so much into physics, this is so primitive thing. What? This classification of this world as earth, water, fire, air, ether, so primitive it is. They should see, they should find out what is earth, what is fire, go more fundamentally to it. But here actually it's fundamental, it's going here now. You go deep into it, earth is coming from water, water is coming from fire, from fire is coming from air is coming from sound, air is coming from ether, and ether is come from sound. Sound is come from a speaker, a living entity, a ego. So ego is the starting point of everything. So it is highly scientific macro analysis of existence. Why I should go into micro? If I want to create atomic energy, okay, I can go into micro and understand and manipulate atom and all these things. But according to Vedic conception of life, the purpose of life itself is the soul to evolve. Therefore, you have to give a perception of this entire creation egocentric, person-centric. Therefore, you see, elements are coming, senses of touch, smell, taste, these are all become fundamental. How can you say this 24 elements? 24 elements are fundamental. When modern science is classified based on atomic structure, their periodic table is there. How many elements are there in this world? So not only earth, water, fire, air, ether, then more elements, up to 24 elements are there. 25th element, Kala, is there. Again, that you can see, this theory of Sankhya will be able to appreciate only if you see from the point of the end in mind. What is the end in mind? The end in mind to understand the living entity's situation in this material world. That is a complete understanding. So we see how the living entity is trapped in the modes of different modes by association with the egos. And then interaction. These are all real things. It's not whimsical. It is not that when you leave this body, it says Daiva Netrena, you get another body. But not somebody is sitting Daiva Netrena arbitrarily deciding. He is deciding based on your mental situation and interaction. He has also got limited powers. Just like if somebody is an authority for something, you say, okay, bring this, then you can authorize. An authority doesn't mean anything he can do. Similarly, demigods are controllers of this movement, that movement, Vayu, this thing, that thing, doesn't mean they can do what they want. Then everything will be in chaos. Even demigods themselves will be in chaos between themselves. Is it not? So every secondary controller in this material world, supreme controller is Parameshwara, is Krishna, the Paramatma. Every secondary controller from the demigods to our own self, they are partial controllers within the laws of material nature. Just like I can control this, but I can control it only within the laws of gravity. Within the laws of gravity. If I go like this also, law of gravity is acting. I move here also, laws of gravity is acting. I cannot take this kartal out of gravity. So I am within the laws of material nature. Similarly, the laws of karma, that is why Yamaraj is there, to decide. He has to do calculation and all, isn't it? Simply Yamaraj doesn't simply decide. You cannot just simply, what you call, butter him and come out of hell. You have to, if there is papa accumulated in you, he will send you to hell. That is his duty, Yamaraj's duty. If you have punya to do, then he will send you accordingly. So, that is the one principle that we have to understand. Predestined activities, even though so many intermediate controllers are there, the laws of gross material nature is there, the laws of subtle material nature is there, and the subtlest material nature is the law of action and reaction, the karma, person-centered. There is a law of how the mind moves, just like we can change beliefs and all these things we say. At the mind level, we can move around the mind. That is not really law of karma. That is again at a mental level there are laws. If you know those laws of association, then you can break belief, take belief, and all those things you can do. But above that, there is a law which is the law of action and reaction. So, subtlest law of material nature is law of karma. That is the reason why, by adjusting the mind this way, all these things, your karma you cannot change. By positive thinking, you cannot change your karma. By positive thinking, if what is in your karma which you are not getting, because everything, if you have money in the bank account, there is a procedure where you have to write a check and go and take the money. Otherwise, what is within your karma also, you will not get. You will not get, but it will not get exhausted. That is the law of karma. Your law of karma, whatever is there. So all these books that talk about positive thinking, all these things, is actually, it is not a waste. It is just like telling people you have become so fallen into lower modes that you are not even writing your check. So please maintain a desire. If you without desire, you cannot get what you want. Not that desire is creating it. People create all kinds of theories that if you have a desire, law of attraction, you will attract your desire. It's a fact. If you have desire, you will attract what is in your account. Not more than that. You can desire anything and you will attract. That is also true. Not this life. That desire will be recorded by Super Soul, and the Super Soul will take you through the process of acquiring. If the desire is strong, you'll work for it. He'll make you do those karmas. And then when you're ready with the accumulated punya, the Super Soul will remind you of that desire again. And then you will get that result. Because this material world is meant for satisfying the desires of the living entities. Doesn't mean tuck, immediately you desire, it happens. Eventually it will happen if you work for it. If you have desire in mode of passion, you will have the mode of passion to act for it also. If you have a desire in the mode of goodness, automatically goodness means you have associated with it an energy of goodness to pursue that desire. So taking small aspects of this phenomena that work in this material world, the karmis create speculative theories. And each of those theories are presented as absolute theories, law of attraction. Very famous now, all educated youngsters in India also they talk about it, college students, law of attraction. You desire, you think you already have it, and then you work, you will get it. And because these kind of philosophies are propagated, there are people who take this and they think, okay, oh, that's all, I have desire, I should do this, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, they go on. And they don't get it because it's not in their account, karma account, they get depressed. So more and more psychiatrists are having business now. It's a fact. The number of psychiatrists, the business of the psychiatrists has increased multifold in America and India also it is starting. Why? Because the philosophy of life is like that. When do you get depressed? When you desire, get obsessed with something, and then you don't get it, then you get depressed. you become hopeless. When hopelessness hits you, the emotion of hopelessness hits you, you get depressed. And that if you obsess too much, that means desire turned into obsession manifests as craving. And then after craving also you don't get, you fall. Your state of mind falls into depression. So we create all these situations. This mental ill health that we create in the modern and big industry of psychiatry and all that is created from the simple thing of people do not know the simple principles of living based on Vedic understanding of life. That there is a law of karma. There is my chesta also. Like 5 factors of action. For karma is the last factor, is daiva, is a destiny. So under destiny you put anything, you put chesta, everything. If that is not there, destiny is not there, you will not get it. You will not accomplish. So it is a shame that today our youths, they read only these Western self-help books because they don't know how to read all this. Only Prabhupada has translated, so we are able to read. So they have no understanding of all these things and they think they are great. And big industry it is, law of attraction. Thousands and thousands of gurus, e-gurus, and it's a big e-business. Somebody will like the power of law of attraction. Somebody will say, what you miss out in the secret of power of attraction, that's why you are failing. So another person will write, why law of attraction is failing? What the other person told, in that there is a missing link. I will give you the secret, they will say. And they're all marketing gimmicks. They'll go on like that. You check, go on with that email, go, I'll give you. Arre, 1 page ho gaya, 2 page ho gaya, 3 page ho gaya, nothing. In the end, he'll say, click here. When you click there, he will say, okay, join this e-conference or this or that, or there's a packet here, we'll send you by email. You can download $10, $15, $20. Your destiny is changed. $20. People who think like that are so foolish. In $20, can I change my destiny? We should actually continuously attack this law of attraction to save the Indian youths at least, by giving them the understanding, yes, how it works, law of attraction. As we explained, yes, desiring is required. It's a very small part of it. If you are so tamasic, you don't even desire, nothing will get. Your karma also won't come to you. It will sit there for next time. Because we have free will. We have action, reaction, the results of those punya and papa, and we have free will in this material world to spend that punya and papa. And some of those things, you don't have 100% free will to spend those punya and papa. Some of the reactions will come upon you, like dukkha comes upon you, you don't will. It comes upon you. Similarly, sukha also, as per the time, it will come to you, because already you have desired, already you have worked for it, and it will come to you. Nothing comes to you which you have not desired. Sometime. You may not have desired in this life. Sometime. So our Shastra says that, no, don't create desires. Whatever comes of its own accord, bring it, enjoy it or suffer, offer it to Krishna and finish it. Do not create new material desires. new material desires will create new life. And if you simply desire the sukha and dukkha that you can get in this life, even though you have accumulated stock of so much for many, many millions of lives, when you take birth, there is this much sukha and dukkha for this life is going to be released. That you cannot change. So this we have to tell our youth. This is our understanding. Therefore, don't work like an ass. Gadda. Don't work like that. Oik Prabhupada gives the example of ass. It works hard because it works hard for a grass which is available right there. Because somehow it thinks that unless I carry the load, I will not get that grass. He himself can go and eat, right available there. Because he is conditioned to master giving him the bundle of grass. So similarly, your karma is available. You already worked for it, that only you will get in this life. You can draw that and you can use it. So immediately, in the human form of life, a human being understands this law, he becomes very peaceful, no? Then the question comes, what should I do with my desiring capacity? We have to desire to control the mind, we have to desire for Krishna consciousness. We have to desire to serve Krishna, to engage in devotion service, practice devotion service, to make spiritual progress. We have to engage our mind, our intelligence, our body, everything we have to engage. And for this, whatever is within our karma, we can take it and you can utilize it. That means you convert it. Normally, punya is, whatever punya you have, you convert it either further punya or further papa. But you take your punya and you convert it into devotional service. If I have any ability, I have to turn it into devotional service of the Lord. In that way, devotional service does not create a reaction, is akarma. It will take you, it will not give you one more, it won't force your own mind-body system when it is completely engaged only in devotional service. When our mind-body system takes rasa only in pleasing Krishna, there is no more life. There is no more life. That's where Prabhupada says our material body becomes spiritualized. And then we become free from birth and death, old age, disease. We get a spiritual body. It's also scientific. It is shameful to hear young, educated, even celebrities all talk about law of attraction. And no idea of law of karma, in spite of being from this land. Any questions?
Prabhu, you said modern understanding of material world is minus the ego. But Sankhya understanding is egocentric. Now, minus ego, how can they be still objective to whatever extent they are objective in analyzing the whole world? Because if it is egocentric, there has to be some subjectivity because egos are subjective.
That is wrong. That is Mayavadi's understanding of ego. Ego's subjectivity is only in illusion. If the ego is in knowledge, he is also in objective. So subjective, there is nothing like subjective truth. The subjective truth means your own truth. Your own truth, where is it? In the mind. Shastras do not talk These are all later inventions. A Vedic philosophy is not about subjective truth. It is about objective truth about subjects. Truth is always objective. Vaikuntha is a reality. Demigods are a reality. Now, I may imagine a white elephant in my mind. You can call it a subjective truth. It's wrong. How can it be called subjective truth? It is subjective reality, not truth. For you, it is a reality. A white elephant or a white crow is a reality for you. But there does not exist a white crow or a white elephant anywhere. So as seekers of truth, as spiritualists, we always believe that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is an objective truth. He really exists. That means He is truth for me, He is truth for you, He is truth for you, He is truth for everybody. That there is one, they are not equal to or greater than Him. A unique personality is Krishna. Now so many people interpret, no, it's subjective, God is there. For you is Krishna, for me is Ganapati, for thee is Shiva, for he is subjective. That means they have turned God into a illusion, creation of the mind. So that is the reason all full of confusion is there. They say that Vedic truth is subjective. Vedic truth accommodates subjects. Doesn't mean it is subjective truth. Truth is independent of subject. Param Satya is independent of subject. That is truth. What is in my mind need not be truth. It can be a reality for me because I live that reality. Like I am in bodily concept. I live in the reality that my wife is my wife, my children are my children, my property is my property. This is subjective reality. And when you go to a sadhu, he will say this is not subjective truth. Subjective truth means you wake up, you are an eternal servant of Krishna. You are not this body. This is the subjective truth about you. Good question.
So there is understanding of difference between reality and truth. Truth is always absolute. Reality can be a temporary reality or an eternal reality.
Again, it depends on what is your definition of reality. If you take reality as something outside of you, then that's not what I am telling. Reality, if you define reality as subjective, that means for each person can have his own reality, which is a mapping of the truth. A truth is mapped. A black crow is mapped into the mind. White color is mapped into the mind. You have knowledge of both. You mix a white and black crow. You paint the black crow with white in your mind. You get a
white crow.
White crow. But white crow is a reality for you, but not a truth. That is about objects. But about relationship, because it all can remain in the mind. Somebody is my father, somebody is my mother. It's a relational thing, right? Outside also it is coinciding. They are also behaving like that. Father and relationship, there is reciprocation. So you believe it. But what is the actual truth? The actual truth is that you are not even that body. You, the subject, because it is a label upon you. Body may be a husband body, a father body, son body. No problem, nothing wrong in telling that. We don't say everything is illusion. In the material world, everything is illusion, we don't say. There is a reading of the material world which is truth. There's a particular reading. As per Shastra, you see this world, that is truth. But if you see it in your own way, concocted way, then that is illusion and that's a reality. So in this world, people are all living in a reality of I am the body, a fundamental illusion. Then relative truths are there.
That's how illusion as a reality we can understand. Illusion is a reality.
Illusion is a subjective reality.
As against Mayavadi's understanding that illusion itself is not a reality.
Yeah. But a reality could also be truth. For me, my reality will match with the truth. That means I will live in truth. My true perception is my real world. Reality means what you think as real. So I live there. जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय.